In this video, we're going to be breaking down the 6 heroes to play as of the mid-season patch that just dropped, because many characters are better or worse based on the patch and the changing of the meta since the start of the season. So we're going to break it all down, but do me a huge solid and smash the like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, and let's jump into the video. Now, I want to give 2 characters honorable mentions. First off, let's talk about Mei, who I think is actually incredibly underrated right now. Mei is super strong against many of the brawl tanks that are predominantly played. Characters like Orisa, Reinhardt, Junker Queen, even characters like Zarya. Mei can just get free kills, denying their space, blocking them off from their team's heals, and you as Mei can greatly impact the tank matchup, which is the most important matchup on the battlefield. And the second honorable mention I'll give you is Sombra. Sombra has been pretty good this season overall as a fold to characters like Wrecking Ball, who did get nerfed but is still going to be ever present. And now Sombra can also hack Orisa out of ultimate, another tank matchup that Sombra is really good against. And in general, Sombra's pretty underrated. I think really strong, especially if you have a dive tank. You can set up dive with scouting, and you can set up hacks with Doomfist engages or Hammond engages. And all in all, I want to give these 2 characters credit where I think they're slept on a bit too much. Now, moving on to the top 6 list. First off, let's talk about Zarya. Now, Zarya just got a meaningful buff, losing 1 second off of her cooldown, and with the previous change where Zarya doesn't lose charge anywhere near as fast, Zarya is just better and better. And I think we're kind of reaching a breaking point where if they buff this character anymore, or they nerf some of her counters or counterparts, we could end up right back into a Zarya meta. But for now, Zarya is insane in any of the brawl matchups. She can definitely dominate Orisas, Ramatras, Junker Queens, and honestly, even up against some dive characters like Doomfist, saving defensive bubbles can just completely shut down that strategy. I think that Zarya is also fantastic with characters that will push forward and get you charged. Characters like Reaper, characters like Mei. Zarya can be really great and play with those well. And all in all, I think that Zarya is just pound for pound just in that sweet spot right now, where if you're better than the enemy team or you're better than the enemy slightly, you can leverage Zarya to just dominate the enemy team. And yeah, she's really great right now. Now, moving on, let's talk about Baptiste. Now, Baptiste did get a change with his immortality field, no longer 10%, now it's 25, which is a big deal, and I don't want to understate how strong that is, especially when used on tanks, but Baptiste has been pretty good for a while. He's a really great catch-all support that not only can output a consistent amount of damage, he has great survivability, but he has a ton of burst healing. So he works really well with brawl compositions, whether that's Junker Queen, even characters like Ramatra. He works well with Poke, so characters like Sigma. And I think he kind of just does it all, especially on maps that have high ground. Maps like Defense Nubani, Baptiste can be phenomenal. And on those high ground maps, not only does he play around them well, but the new Immortality Field buff makes him better at shutting down certain dives that are going to come at you very often on maps like those. So you put that all together, Baptiste is a great pick right now. Now, moving on to a DPS, let's talk about Ashe. And the new Ashe buff is silently pretty insane. Now, if Ashe does any damage with her rifle to a target when she's ulting, Bob will focus that target, and that's actually insane, because one of the easiest ways to counter Bob is just to, as a tank, force Bob to shoot you, right? You don't even care. You're getting healed up, or you have some damage mitigation abilities, or you have a huge amount of health, so Bob doesn't really matter. But especially if you're setting up these crossfires like you're supposed to with Ashe, you're tagging, characters like Lucio or any squishy for that matter in between you and Bob, they're just gonna get deleted just like that. And that's super strong. And just in general, Ashe is even better, especially when we see characters like Sojourn have a hitbox change and has been slowly falling out the meta at least a little bit. Characters like Ashe become better as a pocket. I also think that Ashe is better against a lot of the fly characters they're going to see play, especially with that Pharah change. It's a nice quality of life / buff change for Pharah, and we've been seeing quite a bit of fly characters, pocketed echoes, pocketed Pharahs all around. Ashe is the best at shutting these down, especially with a pocket. So yeah, Ashe is just gonna be a nightmare to deal with. Very strong. Ultimate's better. There's really not much else to say about this really strong character. Now, moving on to other heroes that have just slowly become better throughout the patch as a whole. Not necessarily directly touched, but amazing to play. And number 3 is Zenyatta. Zenyatta might just be secretly like the most powerful character right now. So freaking strong. Discording balls, discording freaking other tanks. Having just one tank that you could perma leave a discord on just gives your tank such a huge advantage in the matchup. We already talked about why that's so important with Mei, and Zenyatta just gets to bring crazy amounts of value just by living. Now, that's the trick, right? Living. As Zen, you're going to be the target of a ton of different people. They're going to punish you, and if they can, you're probably going to lose. I mean, you're going to be that weakness in your team, but if they can't, in any standstill or any parity team fight, Zen breaks it wide open. And I think that Zen is one of those characters where you can just silently hard carry game after game after game, whether you're playing around some of your counters or your opponents aren't actively identifying that you're what they need to counter. You're just gonna hard carry. And yeah, he's like my #1 pick as one of the most powerful characters in the game right now, and that doesn't look like it's changing anytime soon. Number 2 I wanted to talk about is Diva. And Diva has been slowly becoming more and more ever present at the highest ranks of play. Diva kind of just does everything you need her to do. She's good at peeling for your team. So that means that she's actually really strong at like peeling things like Wrecking Ball or peeling other dive tanks that are coming at your team. She can peel them or protect them. So that's kind of what she does. She comes back, she protects them. She denies Tracer plays. She denies enemy team from kind of coming at your team. But you can also play the other way, which is going and contesting enemies on the high ground. She can solo kill DPS that are by themselves. She can deny their line of sight, go in with the dive with her team. So she can kind of play both. And the great aspects of Diva is that you could always do what your team needs at any given time, whether that is coming back and helping your team, peeling off enemy players that are on top of them, or using your mobility and your burst damage to go and kill people that you seem low or punish people that are out of position. She's kind of like the person that makes people follow the rules, and no one is following the rules right now. Players will go on crazy off angles by themselves, thinking they can get perfectly away with it. And back in Overwatch 1, the off tank was always the tank that would go and shut that stuff down. But a lot of divas these days are kind of playing her not in that way. They're playing her more like a frontline threat, which is not the strength of Diva. Diva can do a mix of everything, but primarily being able to punish the mistakes of your opponents is one of the easiest ways to climb, and Diva has all the tools to do so. Now, last but certainly not least, we gotta talk about Tracer, which is probably just the best DPS in the game right now. Priced to get even better going forward. Tracer can punish Mercies, Tracer can punish Zens, Tracer's great with Divas, Tracer's great with many of the dive tanks. And pound for pound, Tracer just does everything that you need her to do. She exploits key weaknesses. She doesn't waste her time poking down things like tanks unless she has Pulse Bomb. And she gets meaningful damage and meaningful kills. And you combine that all together, and if anything, we're in a Tracer meta for sure, and she's one of the most powerful characters that you could learn if you want to climb this mid-season. But let me know if there's any underrated characters that you have on your list, and let me know why down below. Definitely smash that like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, and I'll see you next time.